Hi everyone, so in this tutorial we're going to be continuing on with where we left off in the first tutorial, and that being with adjustment layers and other visual effects, as well as we're going to be talking about keying and keyframing in a bit too. But first I want to start with something that I probably should have mentioned in the earlier video, in that the Premiere Workspace, as you've noticed, is made up of a bunch of different things, but there's different customizable workspaces that you can be in. All of the tabs are here as well. So if you prefer to be working with graphics, Premiere can kind of rearrange itself in order to meet that for you. However, I prefer to work in all panels, as I like to see my source clip, my source material, and then the production itself, as well as the timeline and all of my effects in the right pane here. So there's a lot of different video effects here, video transitions, and audio effects as well that can be used when you're working. So first I'd like to start with something where if we're editing a clip of an animation that was produced that I made, so there's oftentimes an audio track might be linked to this, but there's no audio. So we're just going to unlink that and delete it. I don't need it. I'm going to be using separate audio in the future, and I'd rather not have it. So keep that in mind. And first, I'd like to start with editing any bit of color or opacity changes with this clip. And we do that by, first, you can either edit the clip directly, which would involve that you're in the effect controls, and we would go to something like color correction and maybe tint it or change the color. So when you would do that, you would click an effect and drag it and drop it. However, I might be using this clip later in my video. I'm not too sure. I want to keep it as is, and I prefer to work on an adjustment layer. So if I'm going to be in here, I'd like to do new item, adjustment layer. And this layer will allow for me to edit on the layer itself rather than the clip beneath. That makes sense when you're thinking about like for instance, if I'm going to drop a tint on here, I now can affect the tint of the clip over the adjustment layer and not beyond it. So let's say I'm going to only do the adjustment layer for part of the clip. So now I'm back in it, and I've got my options here. So things like opacity, time remapping, and motion are pretty standard as already appearing on our edits. But if I were to really want to do anything else or work with brightness and contrast, I'm just going to click and drag that, and you can see here it's up in our effect controls. So something like this is where I can adjust the tint, and it will adjust the entire clip. So let's say I want to, and this is kind of where you really get to play around in Premiere and see how things work. So as you can see, that's my entire clip is the pink tint. And if you see, I'm going to go beyond the adjustment layer, and my tint is gone, because my adjustment layer is only adjusting what it is above. So this is a great way for you to keep native what is the clip and then what you'd like to be editing as well. So let's say I don't want the entire thing to be pink, I just want it to be pink at a certain point. So if I'm here, I'd say I want the pink to kind of come at the 8-second mark. I'm going to work with keyframing. Now, keyframing is a way in which you can do just that. You can create different effects at different frames. You can do the same with Premiere Audio. And in that, you can make audio louder, faster, or adjust some bit of it, maybe add some cool effect to it at times. This part right here is basically a timeline. It's a timeline replicating the timeline here. So you see as I move one tracker, it moves the other as well. And so let's say I've got my pink tint here, and I'd like to do an entirely different tint here. So let's go blue. Like more teal, I go there, and I automatically have created a new keyframe. If I'd like to jump to a new keyframe, to my other keyframe without kind of figuring out at what point and what second mark that is, I can click this next arrow and I'm suddenly at that. Now, as you can see, between there is the transition between blue and pink. So I want to go all the way back to the front. I'm going to keep this at the default of black. And, you know, I'd also like to be here. And I don't want this to be white. I'm going to be mapping a dark blue. Oh, it's a little bit different. So obviously this is also something that you should definitely just try different things, see what you like best. Yeah, that's pretty fun. Now I want to jump to the next keyframe. Don't want dark blue for this. I'm going to go dark pink. Oh, maybe even darker. Pretty weird. Let's go white. Okay, so and then you can see my remaining keyframes have preserved themselves. Oh, but we're going to keep the white overall because, as you can see, I didn't click the toggling here. So if I wanted to specify per keyframe, I would have to have that toggled, as you can see. So let's say I want it to be a darker black. Yep. And now you can see that I have a second additional keyframing track happening here. And you can have any number of these. So ongoing tracks, if I wanted to adjust brightness and contrast, that would also be occurring at the same time. Even in with this, when you work on some other things such as time remapping even, which can control the speed of your clip, you can either ease in or ease out. There's other options that can happen here as to how you'd want to be editing your clip. So let's say at this point, let's try this. Let's see if I want to do something of my speed, and let's see if I can ease in or out to it. Oh, I don't know if that quite is what we'd like. We're going to keep time mapping all the same. We'll keep that as is. Maybe we'll change opacity though. So let's have our opacity be 50 at this point, and we'll see what that looks like. Cool, pretty neat. So I've changed my tint, and that also is, I want to make that different from the beginning, so I'm going to keep the opacity at the beginning at 100, and then obviously 250. So let's see if we can do a curve or a different kind of transition to that, either linear or let's do auto bezier. Pretty neat. Got a nice opacity happening here with my clip. And so also obviously, as you can see, when we go beyond that adjustment layer, our clip is unchanged. But if I were to take this and drag it across, we're now editing the entire video itself. But again, we're not editing that origin of it. So that's very important to know and keep track of in your projects. So now we're going to jump onto a different technique in Premiere, and I'm going to just delete these for now because we don't need them. But so in my source, let's work with this clip. So here I've screen recorded a YouTube video that I was watching and that I'd like to be in my project. Screen recording is a great way to kind of utilize a lot of work that is already made. It's working smarter, not harder, really. And as much as you can grab on a screen record, I would use, whether that be an animation of a cursor or live typing, anything like that that can help out with your project that you want to do. So what we're going to grab here is this clip of corn growing, and we're going to go just about till here. Doesn't quite matter too much, and obviously we can do that. I'm going to drag it here and then put this here. And this is talking about my sequence settings and the aspect ratio, so we're just going to change that so we can fit our screen better. And I also have full screen footage that I like to incorporate as the background for behind this YouTube window. So I'm going to grab my clip that I'd like as the background, and there we go. I'm going to bring it down to my bins here. And so as you can see, we've got several different tracks, and something that's going to be important is that I have my top clip on top and my bottom clip on bottom, of course. So again, you can see that that yellow is indicating that our preview is going to be a little bit choppy, but that's okay. So in this technique, we're going to be talking about keying, which is in the, it's not transform, let's see, oh, there it is, it's in its own folder. So keying is a way in which it's a fun technique of sort of masking out objects via color and brightness. And this is a really cool way to do something quickly that is pretty impressive looking. And there's a lot of different options here. I'd recommend looking into more of them as you wish. But alpha adjust is basically adjusting the opacity, and color key is super similar to ultra key, where in which you choose one color, for instance this green screen color, to be keyed out or removed from the footage as if it were transparency. And ultra key really does the same thing, honestly. So what I'm going to be doing is dragging ultra key onto my clip. I'd like to go to Effect Controls, and then I'm going to, under my ultra key color, I will use this eyedropper to eyedrop that lime green. And you're going to see automatically that my background has been removed, and it's as if I have the corn growing as my background and frame in the front. So when I hit play, you can see the two clips happening automatically, and thus that was, oh, I see that I missed a bit in clipping my my bottom clip. So what I want to do is, fun fact, if you didn't know, if you use this red thing, that automatically trims for you. So there we go. Let's try this one more time. So if you hit play, you can see that I've got a different background going on. And so if you really think about it, anything that you would like, that you're using as a solid color that you'd like to keyframe out, you can do. So whether that be a background, or if you wanted that to be a face on a model, or a certain shape in a rendering or an object, you can key that out and really have whatever underneath or on top of, or any other kind of effects to add to that. And so that is pretty much keying. Again, I'd look into a lot of this, but you're mainly going to be using ultra key for a lot of your projects here. And yep, so that's keying and keyframing, and also color correctedness. And again, there's many more options here that will be helpful for you, but mainly it's going to be a lot in the transform tab, whether that be crop, as we had done in the last video, any kind of other obviously keying, and then let's see, color correction or blurring, sharpening. Yeah, that's exactly it. So